So in this video, Tasha Keeney, a research analyst, argues why Cruise and Waymo are actually paving the way for Tesla to get regulatory approval. She also reacts to the tragic accident that happened involving a Cruise vehicle recently, and she gives her take on why she thinks EV adoption is slowing, and I happen to disagree. So let's get into it.
Specifically, what happened is their autonomous permit in California was revoked. And it was like kind of building over time, but really what put the nail on the coffin for this was an accident they had. So someone was hit by a human driven car. They bounced off a Cruise car, and the person was actually dragged 20 feet by the Cruise car as it tried to pull over to the side of the road. So that's not good, clearly. I do think on average, autonomous vehicles will be safer than human driven cars, but it's headlines like this that can cause, knee-jerk reactions, which I think is what we're seeing, that lead to unfortunate events. And then after they got that license revoked, at first it seemed like they were just pausing operations in California. The surprise at the end of last week was that they're actually pausing operations all over the US. So no robotaxi operations. You have to have someone in the front seat of the car, at least for now. It's a big disappointment.
So just an update for you guys, the woman involved in that crash did actually survive, and Tesla has provided some data that can get us thinking more optimistically about reducing the number of accidents in the future with FSD. It says FSD equipped cars appear to be 5 times safer than manually driven Tesla cars and 18 times safer than the average car in the US. And if you can see, this graph is visualized for us, 5 times safer than manually driven cars when you have FSD engaged. And of course, 18 times safer than cars that are not Teslas being involved in accidents.
So they are self-enforcing this ban, right? It's not coming from regulators.
So the fact that they're pausing all over the US, yes, is their personal choice. But,
Okay.
My guess is that it's influenced by something that they're hearing from regulators, right? So we know
Right.
the California ruling, but this is just such a setback that you're not doing this unless you feel like you have to for one reason or another.
Well, I'm going to put my Sherlock Holmes hat on here and get down to the numbers, because in Q3, Cruise lost $732 million. And there's only 400 Cruise vehicles in existence, yet they reported $30 million in manufacturing costs. So what? It's costing you $750,000 to pump out one Cruise vehicle. They have $1.7 billion in cash left, $500 million in negative free cash flow per quarter, and they're going to be talking about raising money in the next 6 months. And suspending your entire program is not where you want to be when you're asking investors for money. It's starting to look more and more like Elon was right about the vision-based approach to autonomy.
Cruise and Waymo are kind of paving the path for Tesla because, so Tesla doesn't need the same approvals that these other companies need because they have like street legal cars with the sensors that, Tesla says are capable of turning them into fully autonomous cars through software updates. So you don't need, I think when you start taking people out of the front seat, yes, you will need approval then. So they haven't done that yet. But up until then, they can run it as like a driver assistance, basically like the most advanced driver assistance system on Earth, right? Until that point, and make a lot of progress along the way. Of course, for background, we always talk about this, but Tesla has a massive data advantage because it has millions of customer cars on the road compared to hundreds at Cruise and Waymo. So a lot more data to train the system.
I think the underlying advantage of the data lead that Tesla has over Cruise and Waymo is that they can actually show that data to regulators to prove that it is safer than human drivers. On the other hand, Cruise and Waymo are spending egregious amounts of money in tech-friendly cities trying to show everybody that these are safe and effective by actually doing it. So people are quick to exclaim that Cruise and Waymo are ahead of Tesla in autonomy because they were first to market. But Tesla is going to be first to scale, as they are already making autonomous capable vehicles at a profit. And they're going to be able to more easily get regulatory approval because they are accruing so much data with their beta testers.
So GM reneged on some of its promises for EVs. Basically, they pulled back some of the forecasted numbers that they had to produce electric vehicles. We saw other players like Ford kind of making similar comments. So the story is that, like, people always thought traditional automakers are going to crush Tesla because they have so much more scale. They produce so many more vehicles per year. Like, sure, they're behind on EVs, but when they get there, they're going to come in strong and it's going to happen way faster than you think. That's not happening. And the reason is because battery architecture is so different than a gas-powered car that that's what you need the expertise in, the battery scale, and the battery pack scale, which is what Tesla, players like BYD in China have, that the traditional automakers don't have. It's like a totally new technology that they're scaling up. So yes, they're like manufacturing titans, but they have to totally reconfigure their manufacturing line to make EVs. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of these EVs at traditional autos just aren't profitable, like they are at Tesla and other players. So that's the issue, that in today's macro environment, you have to satisfy your shareholder base, and you might. I don't think it's the right decision to pull back on these investments. But I think that's ultimately what's causing it.
So Tasha Keeney thinks that the reason that EV makers like Ford and GM are scaling back on their EV investments is due to the macro environment. But Gary Black disagrees. He says, "We continue to believe recent concerns that EV adoption has stalled are incorrect, and that GM and Ford decisions to delay EV capacity expansion are due to their inability to manufacture EVs cheaply and their internal mistakes in pricing EVs such as the F-150 Lightning are too aggressive, leading to surging inventories." And I happen to think that in this case where Gary and Tasha have different opinions, I think that Gary is correct here because he provides evidence via this chart here. I'll click on it so you guys can see it more clearly. Do you notice that green line? That is the volume of EV adoption, battery electric vehicle sales. And you can see that it is going up. It is not stalling, as Gary suggests. And we got more evidence that Gary is right this morning. Ford dropped their October battery electric vehicle sales, and they came in higher than expected. They actually sold more Ford F-150 Lightnings than they ever have before. And if we look at this graph, AJ writes, "The impact of Ford's price reductions on the F-150 Lightning is evident in the October sales report, underscoring the critical role of affordability in driving vehicle sales. In October, 7% of F-150 sales were battery electric vehicles." So affordability does look to drive EV adoption. Looks like Elon was right. And I told you guys that he did not sound as depressed as everyone made him out to be on the Q3 earnings call, because last night we got a bullish tweet from Elon responding to Ron Barron's thoughts that Tesla will have a $4 trillion market cap. And Elon responded saying, "We do not need to knock the ball out of the park several times to achieve that value." He's saying we don't even need to do anything crazy at this point. We can just sit back. The cars are already on the road collecting data. This thing is exponential at this point. And if you want to see when I think Tesla is going to be worth $4 trillion, you can access my Tesla valuation model by joining the channel as a member, because I would greatly appreciate your support. There's lots of good stuff in there. There's an awesome screenplay I wrote about Elon Musk that you can also read. So anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day.